Though these short videos are designed special for groups who are going to come and to explore the Holy Land with Tabar Tours, every time we will talk a little bit about some interesting point of biblical history. And this time we will talk about this. Reading in the Gospels the words of Jesus Christ, naturally we try to find some very deep spiritual truth in that. And there is deep spiritual truth. But if we try to get some couple of thousand years back in time, we will see that people who physically had Christ roaming around this land and speaking to them, those people understood him a bit differently from us today. We all remember the episode when a guy came up to Jesus and he wanted to follow him, and Jesus told him, okay, no problem, follow me. But the guy said to Jesus that, listen, first of all, I would like to bury my mama and dad. And Jesus answered, let the dead bury their dead. In the biblical times, on the territory of Israel, so-called double burial was practiced. Poor people were buried straight away into the ground, exactly as we did today. But people of the middle class and higher were buried twice. A dead body was put into a burial cave. For every family of a middle class and higher, any rich family had the family burial cave, which was called tomb. So when we read about the man who was possessed with demons in the land of Gathering, it is written that he lived in tombs. He didn't live in holes in the ground. He lived in burial caves. Usually cave had two rooms. Sometimes it was one room, sometimes you had two rooms, and in one room there was a stone table. So the dead body was put onto the table. And usually on the third day, usually women came to visit the cave just to be sure that a man really died. He didn't move, he got cold. Usually they brought with them a special bomb that fastened the process of decay of the flesh. They put that bomb, and in the end of the third day, the burial cave was sealed. We all remember when Jesus with his disciples visited Bethany, where his friend Lazarus died. Remember that people told Jesus he is already 4 days in a cave and is stinking. And when Jesus and people came up to the burial cave, Jesus asked people to remove the stone. So he had to call people to come to help him. It means that the tomb was already sealed. And the tomb was sealed for 1 year. In 1 year, a special man came up, the sealing stone got removed, and that man entered into the cave and he checked up that everything was okay, the flesh was decayed. He collected the bones into a special box. We call it gluskema in Greek language. He took that gluskema and moved into another room of the same cave, and there were niches in the walls. And he put the box with man's bones into the niche and plastered it with clay. So to say he buried him another one a second time. So that's why we call it double burial. Reading in the scriptures expression that a man died and his bones were put to the bones of his forefathers, it's not just a fine expression. Actually, this expression shows us the historical reality. Like any job in the world, that job, I mean, a man who used to enter into the cave and to collect the bones, that job had a name. Oftentimes he was called in Aramaic language Mat. It might be translated as a dead man. When a man came to Jesus claiming that he would like to bury his mother and father first, and Jesus answered him, "Let the dead bury the dead," he meant actually, and everybody 2000 years ago and understands it in the way that, listen, I tell ya, anyway, you wouldn't participate in all those processes of burial, of collecting bones. There will be a special man who would come and would do the job. So it's just excuse. We have several itineraries that deal with biblical history and biblical geography. And these itineraries deal with these questions on a different level of depth. Usually, if you come from the territory of Jordan, we start from the north of the country, from the Galilee, and from the Jezreel Valley, which is the natural border between the central and northern part of the biblical Israel. So in biblical times, the territory of Israel was divided into three big areas. The northern area was called Galilee, the central area was called Samaria, and the southern area was called Judea. Exactly as the spinal cord goes through the center of a human body, the same, there is a mountain ridge that goes up from the south to the north, cutting the land of Israel. In the south, it is called Hebron Heights. A little up to the north, the Jerusalem mountains or the Judean mountains. Up north, it is Samarian mountains, and close to the modern Palestinian city of Jenin, this spinal cord just like cracked into two horns. The western horn we call Carmel Ridge, and the eastern horn we call Gilboa Ridge. Up north from these two horns, there is a deep valley that cuts the land of Israel from the west at the Mediterranean, further to the east, to the valley of the Jordan River. And this big and deep valley, which is called Israel Valley, and this huge Israel Valley actually is a natural border between the central part of the land of Israel, which we called Samaria, and the northern part, which we called Galilee.